All right, everybody, we're going to talk memory palace today, or mind palace. And this is a very, very old um, memory strategy. And I'm going to put a little link on your website so you can hear the story. But basically, what it involves is we are able to remember, as we've already discovered, it's easier to remember visually than it is to remember words that don't have images, or as we'll see, numbers. These things are harder for our minds to remember. But our minds are very used to remembering what they've seen. And this uses a strategy that talks about how easy it is to remember locations. So right now, if I asked you to close your eyes and describe what your living room looked like, even though you might not ever have consciously tried to commit that to memory, you could probably do that very easily. And it's not just a room that you've been in hundreds or thousands of times. You could walk into a room, spend a little bit of time there, close your eyes, and you could probably point to where the door would be, point to where the windows are. You absorb those images very quickly. And so what we're going to do is create what's called a palace, a mind or memory palace, and use that as a place to put our memory objects for the images that we're deciding to remember, or the things that we're deciding to remember. So I have in front of you, you can see that I've created this. I grabbed this image off the internet. This is a sample living room. Your assignment, probably before you got here to this video, was to think about your living room and make up a list of the different locations in your living room. Okay, so here's an example. So here's the front door, and I'm going to imagine that you're walking through the front door and you're sort of looking around this room. So you'd see this seat. Then you might see what I would call this stained glass window, number 3. Then number 4 is this table. Let's just say that's a fountain. Okay, so there's a fountain on this table. And then from there, rather than going here, I chose to go to the coffee table, and then to the sofa, and then up to these 2 framed pictures, then to the lamp, then to a window, and then lastly, in this instance, to this chair. And so what we've done here is, very quickly, I have created 10 easy to imagine in my head areas for this room. And what I'm going to do as part of our memory technique up to this point, in order to remember things in order or in a specific order, really the only strategy you've learned so far is the storytelling, right? So if I have 10 items and I want to link them, and I want to say the first item is hydrogen, the next one is helium, the next one, let's see, helium was the balloon, balloon went up, and then it was the lit thumb, that's lithium, and then it popped and scared the bear who was eating the eel, beryllium. So it goes, that's my strategy. Now, as you discovered, the good news here is that you're going to be able to take a list, and rather than doing the story, you'll be able to take each memory object and put it on your door, or put it on your chair, or put it in your stained glass window, or on the fountain, or on the coffee table, etc. Whatever your list is, you'll be able to take the memory object for some DTR list that you have and place it in that location. And that's the secret of the memory palace, is take the thing that you want to remember. Now, usually you're going to have to turn it into a memory object, right? But you take the thing you want to remember, you associate it with a specific location in your memory palace, and then you have a very easy to review process for finding these memory objects. So for instance, let's say I did this first with my daughter. I gave her 10 presidents, the first 10 presidents of the United States. We created a memory object for each one, and she put Washington, in this case it was a dollar bill, on the door. John Adams, can't remember right now what the image we used. I think Adam, a friend of hers named Adam, put it, in this case it was in the piano next to the door. The third was Jefferson. Again, she already had an image for Jefferson because she had seen Jefferson. But for Madison, number 4, she used a mad son, which in my case was my son Fraser, and him being angry. 5, Monroe. So for Monroe, she used a man rowing, and I think the man rowing was on our mantle. So this is the way it works. You already have the one place, the location. You just need to create the object and associate it with this location. So I have given you, first off, I want you to go to your list, and you should have create your memory list, right? But then I've created a practice list that you can use. This is listed as one of your class lists, just if you want to review it. And these are the 8 major English dynasties since the Battle of Hastings in 1066. And so this is just, something to remember. But again, you can use this for any of your lists. If you want to, you can use this list. So you want to say a person named Norman. You want to use Norman, Plantagenet, Lancaster, York, Tudor, Stuart, Hanover, and Windsor. Now, we haven't packed these objects. This is just the memory object that we associated. So if we take it back to this experience here, then what we want to do is we want to say that we want to put our memory object for Norman right here, our memory object for Plantagenet right here, our memory object for whatever the other one is right here. Now, I did not decide to remember it, so let's do that first. Number 1 was the door. I have Norman as my door. Now, you're going to come up with your own term if you want, but for me, I have a person named Norman that I can remember. There's a movie called Paranorman. You could use that. You could just use the word Northman, and have that be your trigger. Or I was thinking you could have no R man, like a man that has a big R across his chest with a big X through it, like a no R man. But you picture him at the door. Maybe you picture him knocking loudly at the door, or your friend Norman hanging on the door like his shirt caught on the hook. Okay, so that's the first thing for Norman. But here's the thing, and I watch this with my daughter. If she doesn't lock it in, then she doesn't lock it in, right? So you have to have the image. You have to have that image of that person knocking on the door. You have to have the image of the person hanging on the door. You have to have the image of the person's head being thrown through the door. Whatever it is, you need to see it. And once you see it, you've locked it in. So number 2, Plantagenet, I thought a plant tagging a net would be a good thing. And we're going to put that right here, right? Or wherever you're going to put on yours. So I can envision this plant reaching out and trying to tag a net. Or to put a price tag, like, close your eyes and listen to me say it, and your mind will start to envision it. The plant putting a tag on a net, right? Just like it's putting a price tag on a net it's about to sell. You have to be able to see it, but once you see it, it'll fit. And that plant is sitting on that chair. So now the next time you see that chair in your head, you're going to say plant tagging the net, right? You have to be able to imagine both the object and the object in the location. Number 3 is Lancaster. I thought this could be like a lance caster, and casting is what you do in fishing. So if you think about taking a lance, like a lance that an old knight would do, and having that be part of your fishing pole, so he's casting the lance, a lance caster, all right? Now, where is that? It's over here on your stained glass window. So maybe it's a stained glass window, and the image in the window is of this lance caster. Or, you could do simple. It could be a knight with a lance casting the knight or casting the lance. But you have to come up with some sort of image. Okay, 4, so that's 3. 4 is this little fountain here. And for me, York is easy because I like York peppermint patties, but you could use the yolk of an egg. Or you could even say like Y or K, like somebody holding up the letters Y or the letters K. I try to stay away from those because that can be a little too abstract. So for me, a York peppermint patty on the fountain, and I'm going to make the image memorable. Let's just imagine this fountain, just this York peppermint patty, just sort of deliciously letting all this water flow over it and kind of taking a shower in the fountain. So that's my image for that. 5, Tudor. You use a lot of things. We're going to use our location here, the coffee table. You could do 2 doors, so you can imagine 2 huge doors on the coffee table. Or you could imagine a tutor, like a math tutor, sitting there teaching the coffee table, trying to get the coffee table to be smarter. Or you could envision a 2-door car, a car with 2 doors on the coffee table, or even dropping on the coffee table and busting it up, right? This is where you use your familiar, because you know your coffee table or whatever it is you're going to use in your palace, and then you use the unfamiliar, some surprise image to recall it. All right. 6 is Stuart, and that's my sofa. So I can just imagine Stuart Little, the little mouse from the movie and the book, on the sofa. Or I could imagine stew art. Maybe there's a painting on the sofa that has stew that looks like Mona Lisa, or something that's painted and it's using stew as the painting. Doesn't really matter. Stew like that you would eat. Then number 7 is going to be my paintings here. And again, remember, you're using a very familiar image. You don't have to try to remember this one. Use whatever your item is on your memory palace. But for me, a hand over, that would make easy sense. I just put a giant hand over whatever I'm finding. So in this case, I'm looking at my picture, and there's a giant hand over it, hand over. And then the last one for our little exercise would be 8, the lamp. And it says wind soar. So wind making it soar makes sense to me, because if I can have this lamp and envision the wind, blowing it and it's making it soar like it hurts, that's a good image for me. So very easily, my eyes are closed right now. I'm going to go through, and again, I'm not even that familiar with this image, right? Because this is not a familiar image to me. If I was doing it, I would do it for my room, but I want to be able to show you. So the first thing, what's my image for the door? I remember Norman with his head protruding through the door. Okay, then 2, I had somebody sitting here on the chair. Who did I have sitting there on the chair? I might so that tells me that I didn't lock in the image very well. Oh, now I remember. It was a plant tagging a net. Okay, I remember this. This is a stained glass of the Lancaster. Number 4, it's the York Peppermint Patty taking the shower. 5 is the Tudor on this. 6 is Stuart Little. 7 is the handover. And 8 is the windsoar, right? So what I did was, except for the one here that I didn't do a great job of locking in the image, I have images for all these, and this is an unfamiliar area. You can create any number of memory palaces as you want, but that's the key thing to do. So what I want you to do is make sure you have a memory palace with at least 10 rooms in it as you're ready, set. I'll probably give you an assignment tomorrow to use that on one of your lists to see if that works better for you than the stories. And then practice with our practice list, or you can use one of your stories. It doesn't really matter. This is another technique. Now that we've conquered memory objects and we've talked about linking, we're going to want to pack some more. We're going to want to practice some additional techniques for connecting them. Next week, we're going to be using pegs, and that's a way for us to start using numbers and to be able to say, what's the 23rd item in a list? Well, right now, you'd have to do a story, or you'd have to do a mind palace all the way to get to 23. But we're going to show how we can do that very easily. But practice the mind palace. It's thousands of years old, and it's a very, very effective strategy. I will say I use the storytelling more often than the mind palace because I like just to create those linkings. But the mind palace is incredibly valuable, and I use it at least every week.